Hello and welcome to the first live performance setup rig rundown thing. I've been posting these videos for a little while now, and I've had people had questions about what exactly is going on here. So I want to give a probably not so quick rundown of the various details of what's happening, how all the bits and pieces communicate with one another, how I'm generating sounds, all that kind of stuff. So if you guys are into this, if you have questions about it, feel free to let me know. I'll try to either answer in the comments or make further videos as the setup continues to grow and evolve and change over time. That being said, this whole situation is not a finished product. This is something I've been working on for a long time, and it's gone through many iterations. If you look at the early videos, the setup's a little different than newer videos. This version of the setup is nearing like a 1.0 kind of stage, where I'm pretty happy with most of what's going on. It's not quite at 1.0 yet, and I'm sure once I get there, I'll want to change it and do different things later on. I'm not trying to make this channel like a gear kind of channel, but I do just want to give a rundown of what's happening here and how I'm making music with it. So there are four main components to this, as you can see. We have the Oxi One, which handles all of the sequencing as well as some of the modulation. The Eurorack setup is going to be all the voices, so pretty much every sound that I'm making is coming from here. There's also some effects and some modulation. But yeah, pretty much all the sounds are coming from here, except for some of the drums. Some of the drum sounds live inside the Push 3, which is in standalone mode, and I'm using this primarily for mixing and doing per track effects, as well as some mastering, but it's basically there to act kind of like a mixer. We'll talk about what the buttons do later on. And then I have the Neuzeit Drop, which I'm using to control everything. It's connected to everything. It sends MIDI to the Oxi, it sends MIDI to CV, to the Eurorack. It's MIDI mapped to a bunch of controls on the Push. It basically does everything. I'm using the drop controls here, which I'll talk about later, and then this stuff all controls everything. The other really important thing about this setup that you need to know is there are 8 tracks, and everything exists on one of the 8 tracks, and everything is color coded. So drums are always purple, so I got purple track here is for drums, and then this purple track is drums, and this purple track is drums. The dark blue is going to be my glitch track, so dark blue here, and they're always in the same order. So everything's color coordinated, so I don't need to label anything. So dark blue is going to be glitch, light blue is going to be bass, this kind of like turquoise is going to be the Bastl Pizza into the Deja Vu, into the carbon. The green track is going to be the first set of voices coming out of the Oxi Coral. The yellow track is going to be the second set of voices coming out of the Oxi Coral. It only has 2 outputs, so I panned them opposite each other, so just one's the left side, one's the right side. So it's basically 2 sets of mono voices. The orange track is going to be the Manus Iteritas by Noise Engineering. And then the pink is going to be the Knobula Monumatic. So you can see all those line up here. They control everything. So let's talk about the main section of this first real quick of the drop. So I have track mutes here, so I can turn on a track. So I can turn them on and off here. I also have these controls here that act as my mutes. There's a little extra delay in there. So if I want to turn on a track, but I want it to be, or turn off tracks and want them to happen at the same time, you can see there's this little playhead moving around this circle. So if I turn these on, once it gets to the top of that circle, it's going to turn on those 3 tracks. And then I can just turn them off here anytime I want. I can also use these to mute them. So if I have one that's playing and I want this to turn off, if I hit this button at the end of those 4 bars, that'll turn off and that'll turn on. So this is basically kind of like a pseudo quantized mute or unmute for any of the tracks. So these 4, and everything's color coordinated, are my track ons, and these are my track offs. So that I can turn multiple things on and turn multiple things off all at the same time. And I can also freeze up my hands so that I can like hit the button and then go do other stuff while that's happening. And then each one of these tracks is going to have a couple effects built into it. So let's turn this down a little bit. So this is just a low pass, high pass filter on the top row of each one of these. It's just like a DJ filter. So if I want to mute things, I can do that here. That also turns it on and off. I want to turn it on and off. And then I have my sends. So this is the send A. That's being sent to the Electus Versio. So I'm sending out of the ES9 into Electus and then back in. I forget which firmware I'm using. I'm using one of the delay reverb ones. I don't think it's the Electus firmware I'm using. But that's on here. And then I have a second one here. This just goes to a delay send in live. And this is like a weird delay with a little bit of reverb. So the first one is like mostly reverb with a little bit of delay. And the second one is mostly delay with a little bit of reverb. Ideally, I'd like to replace my second row of sends with a module to do that. However, I am out of inputs on the ES9, so I need to either take some things out or I need to figure that out. That's a future me problem. So those are all the same across all of these. So it just acts like a little mixer. This top row here, which currently only has 2 options, these are going to be my global effects right now. The first one is just like a fade to gray. So I turn it off and then the amount here. And then this one is just a noise sweep. So this exists on this track over here. Every 8 bars it does a noise sweep and it just uses follow actions to randomly pick one. So if I turn this on, once this again gets to the end of the loop, it'll start doing a noise sweep. So I can start doing transitions without having to hit anything. And so I can like hit those. It'll do the noise sweep. And it'll turn those tracks on. So you can kind of combine those together to make these transitions that feel very kind of planned and composed. But again, everything is improvised. Nothing is pre-planned whenever I'm working with this setup. So that's the main page here. On-offs, mixing kind of stuff, pretty straightforward. I'm not going to get into like details about what everything does all the time. For all of these, there might be future videos where I do that more. So the next thing I'll talk about is these buttons here. These will randomize my sequences. So for example, if I have, this is my bass line. So it's the Electus Synths bass line. If I want to randomize that, these buttons here will send a MIDI signal from the push through the drop into the Oxi to randomize that sequence. And again, it's to be quantized at the end of an 8-bar loop. So if I hit this button here, you can see this is my current sequence. Once this gets to 12 o'clock, it'll generate a new sequence for me. And if I hit it again, at the end of 8 bars, it'll generate a new sequence for me. And if I have another sequence, it'll do the same thing. So that's how I make material. I just hit the buttons. It either comes up with something cool, and then I might like tweak it and edit it a little bit to make it a little bit different. But I don't generally write any of the MIDI. The MIDI just comes from randomizing it. I can also go into the Oxi and just hit the random button if I want to do it at any time. So that's a big part of the improvisational element of the setup. I don't control any of that stuff for the most part. It just happens. The other important things that are happening, so we have our drum track here. Right now everything's muted, but I can unmute it here. So these are your basic drum sounds you're going to get. Kick, snare, close hat, open hat, shaker, rim shot, tom, and then clap at the top. And then if I want to start controlling those, there's multiple pages on the drop. So if I hold this, I can go to my different pages. Everything's color coded again. So this is my purple page, which means it's for my drums. So each one of these is its own drum track. So this is my kick, snare, close hi-hat, open hi-hat, same order as we went here. So for example, let's focus on like the closed hat. So if I turn this up, these are controls for the closed hi-hat, so I can turn the volume up and down, make it quieter or louder. And then all of these drums have an option at the top to go on this side, which is a synthesized drum sound. I can adjust the decay as well as the pitch, or a sample. And that's basically the same for all of them across the board, so I can use those to tweak my drums for each drum sound individually. The next page is my glitchy sounds, which is kind of divided up between two different places. These bottom four are the Rample, and then the top four is just a drum rack inside of Live. So if I turn this on, it's doing a bunch of like random sequences. And these are being modulated using the mod lanes inside of the Oxi. So I'm getting basically a sequence of random drum sounds. And if I want to randomize it, I hit this button, and then eventually I'll get a new sequence of random. This is just a bunch of different drum sounds I've loaded up into either the Rample or the drum rack. So looped randomness is something, a big part of like how this whole setup works. Bassline. So if I go to my next page in the drop, I have basically them set up in sets of 16 knobs. So these blue are for my bassline. There's not a lot of MIDI mapping going on here because the Ericson's bassline does not have a lot of modulation inputs. I usually have to like control it by hand. But I do have some distortion controls. So if we turn that on, here it is. Here's out the distortion. I can tweak the distortion to make it sound just to get some variation on it. So that's the bassline. And then these controls are for the pizza. So if I turn this on, I've got some filter controls here that go to the carbon. And then I have some effects here. But there's just a few things to like kind of tweak what I already have access to here. And then the next track is the first one coming out of the Oxi, which is the green track. This one is going through the data bender, so that's why you're getting all those kind of glitchy sounds. If I turn that down, it's no glitchy or lots of glitchy sounds, which is super fun. The cool thing about this is that it's a bunch of mono sequencers with a different length usually. So it's going to be looping through them and you get this kind of like polymetric kind of sound. And then if we go to the page for it, there's a bunch of mappings for the Coral. So this is my volume attack, sustain, decay. This is filter controls. This is the harmonics, the timbre, and the morph control. So basically, because the Oxi receives MIDI, I can send a bunch of stuff to it and gives me lots of control. This is the engine. So if I turn this up, I can choose the engine and tweak the settings. Turn on the filter, down the filter. So it gets a lot of cool controls really easily, and you get these cool polymetric sounds. And it's multi-timbral. So that's one of my favorite things to play around with. And then I have the same thing on the next track, which is yellow, but its own set of controls. So everything's exactly the same. This is basically my volume envelope, filter and filter envelope, all the kind of oscillator controls. The engine is here, and there's some effects. combine them together, they sound really cool. Turn up the deadener. So yeah, so Coral is one of my favorites because you can do a lot of cool stuff with it, and it's got MIDI. It's great. The next one is going to be the Manus, which is going through nothing right now. Usually I have it going through other stuff, but there's not enough space right now. And I usually use this for like pretty straightforward kind of synth sounds. I like when it's just like one or two notes to kind of fill in some background space. And that's over on this page here. So I have some filter controls which are not doing anything right now, and then I have some effect controls for it. And then the last one is the Monumatic, which also takes MIDI, which means I have a bunch of controls I can play around with it with. This is on the Oxi, a chord mode, and everything is harmonized to this. So right now I have the arpeggiator turned on, which is why it sounds like that. Or I will often turn off the arpeggiator and just get some like chord sounds. So super easy, either one, either arpeggiator or chords, sounds awesome with both of them. And then everything else is in the harmonization mode on the Oxi. So depending on what chords I'm doing and what key I'm in, it's going to all change the rest of the sequences. So yeah, that's actually most of what's happening here. So I'm generating sequences using this, tweaking a little bit if I need to. The drums are the only ones that are not randomly generated. I'm looking into ways to do more random generation stuff with that, play around with it, see what happens. But yeah, and then I'm spending a lot of time in the main mixing section, and if I need to do any sound design, I can either go to the page for that particular track and oscillator or voice. And I did forget to mention that the kick is going to the Bohm. So all the rest of the drums are inside a drum rack in live. The kick is going to the Bohm, and the Bohm is going into the push 3. And then, yeah, so I tweak different settings here. Sometimes I'll do it over here. Sometimes I'll do it over here. I also have the Oxi Meta, which I'm still getting used to. So if I want to do like kind of global effects. I can do that by playing with the meta. But yeah, and so I'm like generating these sounds, generating these sequences, and then just kind of mixing them, playing around with them, tweaking them a little bit. The idea is that I will generate a set of ideas, kind of play around with it for a little while, get used to it, mute things, turn them off, turn them back on again, generate new sequences. I can change the key by using a different bank in here. This changes the key of my sequencer. It's all in the circle of fifths, so I can kind of keep things in key. And then do that for a little bit, have some fun with it, fade into some kind of ambience, and then basically do it all again on the fly, and then build a whole set like that of me just doing that. Sometimes it can be more ambient, sometimes more dance-driven. The idea is flexibility is kind of the point. I want to be able to do lots of stuff and not have to commit to any one kind of style of making music, because that's fun. But yeah, if you have any questions about this or would like to see more stuff like this, feel free to let me know, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. And if you liked the rundown, check out some of the other videos of me doing it, actually like playing with it, performing with it, and I'm trying to kind of push what this setup can do and make a lot more music with it. The big thing for me is flexibility, improvisation, and mostly just getting away from my computer. This is like not technically DAW-less because there's Ableton inside the push, but trying to move away, be real tactile, allow me to control lots of things without being overwhelmed and trying to do like a one-man band where I'm writing MIDI and then mixing it and doing effects and doing all at the same time. Trying to keep myself busy and engaged while performing without overloading myself. And that's kind of the idea. So yeah, so that's it. Thanks for watching.